Here we go. Israeli jets streaking through the skies over Iran, hammering military targets, including missile launchers and Iranian nuclear facilities.
This as Iran continues firing missiles into central Israel and now warning if the U.S. gets involved, there'll be, quote, serious, irreparable consequences.
And Mike Tobin is live in Tel Aviv with the latest for us. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Ainsley. Now, this is a nightly routine, but people here in central Israel were sent running for the bomb shelters in the middle of the night with more Iranian ballistic missile attacks. Two attacks came just after midnight local time. The IDF says some 30 launches of missiles were detected. The missile defense systems did their job. We heard multiple explosions in the sky over Tel Aviv. The IDF says that several missiles did.
Here's us to put pressure on Putin, and that means more sanctions, additional sanctions. I'd love to see the package that is in Congress right now passed as quickly as possible. I think that gives us more leverage. It gives the Ukrainians more leverage. I also think there needs to be continued military and intelligence assistance given to Ukraine by us, but also importantly by our allies and Ukraine's friends. And we also need to get access to the $300 billion in Russian sovereign assets that's just sitting in Europe and could be used to buy weapons, U.S. weapons, to defend Ukraine. And that could be something that helps Ukraine defend itself also in future. So there is a deal to be had. But the first thing that needs to be solved is we need to support Ukraine and provide.
Did get through, resulting in damage but no injury. Remarkable video from the sky over Jerusalem as a ballistic missile re-enters the atmosphere, creating a fireball in the sky. The IDF says no injuries as a result of that missile either. The IDF confirms one of the drones is down. Iran claims to have shot it down. Israel says no one was hurt, and the wreckage of the drone will not provide an information breach to the Iranians.
Michigan as a Democrat, so we want to talk about the war in Ukraine, but let's start there with your new political ambitions. Tell us why you are running for Congress, Madam Ambassador.
Thanks so much, Mika and Joe, for having me on. It's great to be here. I have to say, I've dedicated my entire life to serving our country, fighting for freedom and protecting democracy under 5 presidents over 28 years. And I was incredibly proud to do this job every single day. But the policies of the Trump administration are not only detrimental to our power and our influence overseas, they're also bad for us back home, including for Michigan families in my home state here in Michigan.
Iran's supreme leader sent a message over Iranian TV. He refused President Trump's demand for unconditional surrender and threatened irreparable consequences if the U.S. gets directly involved. That was a threat echoed by a top Iranian diplomat.
We are totally ready to give appropriate response. We will start responding to the United States.
Israeli fighter jets were busy in the skies over Iran last night. They hit 5 attack helicopters that were on the ground, according to the IDF, as well as hitting production sites and launchers for ballistic missiles. Also hit some key nuclear enrichment sites on the ground in Tehran. The Israeli Air Force now boasts air superiority over Iran, saying that they have badly degraded the air defenses to such an extent they can fly over Iran without much risk of being shot down. Guys, back to you.
So with the Ayatollah's statements, does that make one think that we should worry about our assets in the region, Michael?
Well, you do see some repositioning of the missile launchers from Iran, which is not entirely clear if they are repositioning to aim at U.S. bases, say, in Iraq or some other locations. But clearly they're making those threats, and the U.S. forces are on alert because of those threats.
Mike, where are those bases in the Middle East?
Well, you have bases in Iraq in particular. You have naval assets in the region. You have U.S. forces that have been in Syria. You have somewhere around 40,000 troops that are based in the region here, Ainsley.
And then you got Qatar, too.
Yep. Mike, just to be clear, the Supreme Leader hasn't offered any type of...
Joining us now, former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink. She resigned from her post last month, citing the administration's policy toward Ukraine. And now she is running for U.S. Congress in...
And because of that, I am running for, as a Democrat, for Michigan's 7th district, and this is going to be a key battleground state. I think that the stakes are just too high and that we need leaders of principle who are going to step up and go to Washington and do the right thing. And I encourage supporters to join me at BridgetBrink.com.
Madam Ambassador, good morning. We'll have to ask you a little more about your race in a second. But if we get just the latest on what you see on the situation there in the war with Ukraine, it does feel like the United States, to your point, continues to pull back from the conflict. That recent days there had been a working group within the White House looking to explore means of potentially punishing Russia, turning up the pressure on Moscow. That group has been disbanded. Also, the U.S. Senate, which has a lot of support for a really tough sanctions bill against Russia and secondary sanctions for those who back Russia, have tabled that, putting it on the back burner until not revisiting now until later in the summer. So with that vacuum, what dangers does it pose?
Well, this is exactly why I left my position as U.S. ambassador to Ukraine. I left a couple months ago because of the pressure that was being put on our democratic ally in response to Putin's terrible war of aggression in Ukraine and letting Russia off the hook. And I feel that the Trump administration's policy is one of trying to solve the problem by appeasing Russia and its demands to take over Ukraine. But the problem is that Russia and Putin have a much bigger strategy and a much bigger agenda. And it's not only to subjugate Ukraine, but it's to divide Europe, threaten Europe, and also undermine the United States. And so I believe that what we need to do is use muscular diplomacy to try to solve this war and to put pressure on Putin to come to the table. And what we're doing is exactly the opposite.
So, Ambassador Brink, everything you just said was totally accurate, and the world sees it playing out each and every day as Ukrainians die each and every night under attack from Moscow. What do you figure the deal is between President Trump and Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think actually the deal should be between Russia and Ukraine. I think Putin started this war, and it can be finished, but it requires guaranteed security for Ukraine. That's what's going to bring 10 million displaced people home, allow Ukraine to restart its economy, and to move forward in a way that could be positive for not just Ukraine, but the entire region.
Back to your political campaign, Madam Ambassador, how much do you think the war in Ukraine and the concept of support for Ukraine will play in your campaign? Do you think voters are engaged on supporting Ukraine?
Well, what I hear back home, and I'm now in Lansing, Michigan, is that people are actually most concerned about, what we call kitchen table issues. So it's basically the economy, it's prices, it's the effect that the reckless tariffs are having on raising prices here, including a 24% increase in baby products, in the cost of baby products for new parents. It's things like how and whether the budget that's currently moving through Congress is going to affect